Now to the nationwide battle over abortion rights. It is catching the attention of Homeland Security officials.
That's right. CBS News has obtained an intelligence bulletin warning domestic violent extremists are using the debate to encourage violence against the government, religious groups, and reproductive health care providers. This, of course, comes in the wake of that leaked Supreme Court draft majority opinion that could overturn the landmark Roe v. Wade decision. The Department of Homeland Security warns the number of threats could increase as we get closer to the court's official ruling.
And joining us now with more is CBS News senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge. Catherine, thanks for joining us. What makes this intelligence bulletin in particular stand out, and what does it say about the overall threat picture here?
Nancy, what really caught our attention here on the investigative team is how this intelligence report from Homeland Security has so much specificity about the threat environment here in the national capital region, and that includes the Supreme Court, Congress, as well as the executive branch. And it specifically cites that at least 25 threats on social media have been referred to partner agencies for further investigation, that these threats include a discussion of burning down or storming the Supreme Court, as well as attacks on Congress, as well as lawful demonstrations. And this is really a good template to understand how this online chatter can move from the virtual world to the real world, where it's significant and credible enough that it does demand further scrutiny.
And so, Catherine, what factors then have come together to create this heightened threat environment that officials are so concerned about?
Tanya, we've been able to review a number of what they call law enforcement situational reports that had been put out by the states to understand this current threat environment. We saw documents from Maryland, New Jersey, California, Florida, as well as the greater Washington area called the National Capital Region. And there were two main issues that seemed to come to the fore. One, this description of COVID as kind of an incubator, an incubation period, if you will, for individuals with very extreme views. And one report specifically talked about the shooter in Buffalo as an individual who really became further radicalized during this period, very isolated, and then sought out gaming platforms where the speech can be very extreme because there's less moderation of the content. And the second thing that caught our attention is this new discussion about what are seen as soft targets by extremist groups. And they cited some sobering data from the FBI that in 2018, 2 supermarkets were reported as targets of mass shootings. But in 2020, that number rose to 6. And when you look at the overall picture, this is a huge majority of what we've seen since the year 2000. So the identification of supermarkets where people are obviously relaxed, they don't have that same kind of security, is seen among some of these groups as the new target of interest.
Especially alarming when you consider how they are mainstays in a community.
Correct.
What is the response then from Homeland Security to this?
Homeland Security provided CBS News with a statement, and it reads in part, DHS, or Homeland Security, is committed to protecting Americans' freedom of speech and other civil rights and civil liberties, including the right to peacefully protest. DHS is also committed to working with our partners to share timely information and intelligence to prevent all forms of violence. And really, this is a very difficult job, not only for Homeland Security, but also for the FBI, finding that sort of sweet spot between intervening and thwarting what they think could be potentially violent acts while also preserving freedom of speech and this divergence and this healthy discussion about different points of view. One of the things I just want to end on is that it does seem, based on our reporting here, that the state law enforcement has really been more forward-leaning on this issue since the leaked draft was presented. And we've seen, as I mentioned, reports from Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Florida, and California. And it was only this week that we saw that overall threat intelligence bulletin from Homeland Security.
Catherine Herridge, thank you very much.
Thanks, Catherine.
You're welcome.